Welcome to Lesson 5 in learning to use your basic wood turning tools. In lesson number 2, we showed you the basic cuts with the skew chisel, and this one we're going to finish up the skew chisel showing you some of the more advanced cuts, those that make this the most versatile tool in your kit. In the first session we actually did a planing cut, sort of like this, and we did a V cut, cuts like this. And so we're not going to review that. You can go back to lesson number 2, look at that video. If you haven't looked at all the videos, go to my website, jlrodgers.org, and you'll find all the videos there. And the latest ones as they come will always be posted on the home page. So we're going to change that. We're going to go away from this, and we're going to reset. And I'm going to start showing you some of those advanced cuts. Be back in a minute. Here we are, we've reset. I have a cross-grain piece of wood on a faceplate because I want to show you some of the other basic cuts that we can do with the skew chisel. For instance, the peel cut. We're going to take the tool flat on the tool rest. We're going to have the long point leading, and we are going to really roll it into the wood just like we did with the parting tools. Remember the drawing on the board? And this will take away a lot of wood very rapidly. It doesn't necessarily leave an attractive surface, but it does the job of getting rid of a lot of wood very rapidly. So let me show you. Now that's removing a lot of wood. It's left a slight dovetail shape because of the shape of the tip of the tool. And by bringing the tool around to square from here to this, I can clean that surface up. Let's assume this is going to be a tenon, for instance, for your chuck. Put it into a chuck to work on it like a bowl would be. Well, I need to take it down to the right diameter. Then I need to put the proper shape on this corner. So let's get it down to the proper diameter. The chucks we use here, probably about like that's probably going to be a good size. So I've kind of got a goal. I'm going to take this down, and then we're going to perfect the tenon. So the size is about right. The shape is definitely not. So I'm going to take the tool and bring it around flat and clean this surface up. So what I've done is kind of squared the corner up. Yeah, I didn't hit my pencil mark, but that's okay. What I've also been able to do was to establish this corner down here to be really square. For many chucks, if this corner is radius like this, your chuck isn't going to grab properly and hold as tightly as it can. This corner needs to be 90 degrees or more. In this case, because I've undercut, I clearly have a dovetail started for many kind of chucks. That's the right cut. There's your dovetail for certain brands of chuck. The chucks we have in here require square tenon, so I'm going to have to take some of this off, shorten it a little bit. That's way too long for a tenon. And then I'm going to square it up. So let me show you what that one would look like. In which case, what I'm doing here is bringing the tool around, peel cut down, get rid of part of this, about half of it, and then square it around like this to make sure it's nice and square to the jaws of the chuck. So what I did, I squared the tool up, got a clean corner at the bottom, and since this is too long for tenons, I then used the peel cut to remove unnecessary wood. So we now have a tool that is probably really, really good for making tenons. For certain brands of chucks, it needs to be square. For other brands of chuck, if the tool is brought in like this, it creates that perfect dovetail to fit. So we've done a peel cut, we've made a tenon. There is another cut here called the end cut, which is a nice clean way of slicing across these end grain fibers and creating a really smooth surface, like for the end of a tool handle or something. Reduces a lot of the sanding. Let me show you that real quick. What I did to keep the tool from catching was not lay this bevel against the wood surface. If I do that, this whole edge engages, and I have a great possibility of the tool being kicked back and a spiral being cut. But I have left an angle between the tip and the surface of the wood, generally just enough to be able to see through, about 1 or 2 degrees. So I'm really rubbing the bevel right on that little tip. Let me do one more for you, show you. Did a whole series of them. But if you could see on the video, this surface here, which is end grain, is really smooth because I've sliced the fibers rather than tore at them from this angle like this. You're not going to find another tool that will give you that clean of an end grain cut than the skew chisel in what we call an end grain cut. So let's go back, excuse me, reset one more time, and I'm going to show you probably the most difficult cut that we can do with the skew chisel, one that takes the most practice. Trust me, but it is a beautiful way of doing beads. Be back in a minute. Okay, we reset again. I'm back on spindles again, and what I want to do is to show you how to roll beads with the skew chisel, something that scares people a lot. And rightly so, because it takes some practice to do this properly. On the close-up camera, I want you to take a look at the tool I'm going to use. Again, I want to remind you that for rolling beads, the short point, or the heel of the tool, should be rounded, allowing us to be able to roll easily. If we had to do it with a flat edge, we would go from flat up onto a corner and back down onto another flat again, and that makes it just a little bit more difficult. So the key to this is, one, lots of practice. Years ago, one of my instructors showed me another trick, which you can see on the close-up camera here. On the short point, I've radiused over these corners very slightly, just took that shoulder off. That somehow allows the tool to roll more easily and less likely to catch. So it's something you might want to try. And I'm using a straight tool here because as I roll it, I think I can see the working edge much more easily. So, bead. This could have been approached from several different ways. I could have done a half bead on both sides. I could have done the bead in the center. So let's do another one. My lace bead is still about 1500. And I'm going to start off by doing 2 V-cuts. And what that is doing is establishing the left and the right side of that tool cut. So tool's laying flat. I'm going to do the left side first. I'm going to come up and touch off. I'm going to just roll that tool in. I'm approaching back towards the center. And the other side, I turn the tool over. Now I have a little bump in the center of this one because I didn't do a really good job. I'm going back and just do a cleanup. Let's do it again. Establish the left side and the right side. Start in the middle. Or actually, I'm not starting in the middle. I'm starting in the corner. I'm taking little tiny cuts. Moving back towards the middle. Each time rolling farther. Ending up vertically. Other side. Oh, what happened? Well, this is what happens to most people when they're cutting, when they don't have a lot of practice in them, like me this morning. I have a mark here that just ruined that piece. What happened was I engaged this whole edge in the middle of that cut. So I didn't do the right thing. On my right side, that's what I should have done. On the left side, that's what I should have done. So the key is I'm working just with the very tip of the heel. If this edge gets engaged in there, you can see what happens. I left you a perfectly good identifying mark here. These cuts like this, these spirals, generally come when the whole edge gets engaged like this, rather than rubbing the bevel. And on these beads, we're actually cutting just right on that very end. Now I can clean this up in here. I can do, what's this, a planing cut. Clean the surface up. Now I'm going to roll that into a bead, big one, starting in the center. It's a much larger bead, so what happens now is the tool has to transverse across the wood at the same time I roll it, and so that takes practice. And there's my bad one over here. Little bump in the top here I want to take care of. So we got a bead, got a big one. So now as the bead gets larger, my left hand has to pull the tool across, or push the tool across, in order to cover the width that you need. Meanwhile, my right hand is rotating the tool. Did you notice where my finger is? My index finger is up along the shaft. I'm holding this tool short, tight. I've got my arms into my body to give me more stability, and my work is done right here with the hands. The other side, I just turned the tool over and did the same thing. If you grab the tool like this, you're not going to have the freedom of motion to make that cut. Get that index finger up here. Allows the wrist to have that freedom to move. So beads, planing cuts, V-cuts, end cuts, little addendum to this video. I have here one of the tools that someone might buy when they're first getting started. It's an inexpensive skew chisel. It needs a little bit of work, and it needs to be brought into shape so it can work a little bit better. A couple of things that I'm going to work on here. First of all, when this tool was packaged, or before it was packaged, it was dropped on the point and there's a little chip right here on the edge. So I need to regrind this whole bevel, which will be easy to do. Second thing is the short point or toe of this, remember for rolling our beads, this is squared off here, and this is a very wide tool, so that's going to make it much more difficult to do large beads. So this needs to be radius. That's going to take a little bit of time on the grinder, but there's no other way to do it. So the first thing I need to do is let's dress this edge first. And what I'm going to do is set the grinder up so that we'll be able to do that. So I've set the platform as close to proper matching to this bevel as I think I could do by simply coming down here, laying it on the platform, pushing it up against the wheel, and looking for a glint of light between there. And I still see just a bit. Now I don't see any light now, so I'm awfully close, if not right on. So remember from earlier lessons, one of the things we do, we'll black up this edge a little bit with a little magic marker. One side's probably good enough because they both will need to be the same. And I'm going to turn the grinder on, and I'm going to just touch this for a second. I'm going to see how close it comes. Touch the tip just a little bit more, maybe just that much. Flat on the wheel, on the platform. Pretty good. It's a little different curvature than before. This is, well, this is relatively flat. So when this tool was manufactured, it was manufactured and ground on a wheel that was much larger in diameter than this 8-inch. So as a result, I'm putting a new hollow grind in this tool. It's a different angle. So I'm going to be okay with this. Flat on the grinder. Straight across. Flat. Oh yeah, cleaning up really nice. But I'm changing the angle slightly. So I'll be back in a couple minutes when I get this edge done. I'll let you take a look at it. If you watched some of this grinding, you noticed I was occasionally turning the tool up on edge and checking it. I want to be sure that I grind the same amount on both sides so that this edge stays dead in the center. Second thing I'm concerned with is I come along here, I want to watch sparks begin to come over this edge. And when they come over this edge, I know I've got this side cutting on the grinding wheel at this edge right here. Now do the same thing here. Now that looks perfect on this side, probably from the camera angle looks really great, but the other side I'm not going to show you because it's not this nice. But it's good. If I grind more, I can make this very attractive looking, but I'm going to waste metal. The edge is there. It's done. It's good. It needs a few strokes on the hone. So you have to break that burr off. So we repaired the edge. This was chipped right in this area here. And now we have a razor sharp edge. But we now have to work on this, and this is going to require us grinding this on both faces here to round this edge off. I'm using this on an aluminum oxide wheel. This is a blue wheel, which is a little harder than normal, but you can see already it's beginning to pick up some black. And that's metal fibers that are in there, and for this to cut the best, I need to clean that surface. So I have my wheel grater here. We'll lay it on the platform. Just a few strokes. Now that wheel's clean enough that it's going to cut really well when I start to grind this heel. This is going to take some time. So what I'm going to do is grind a little bit here, grind a little bit on this side, and as I get pretty close to being round, I'll come back and show you some more. Okay, I'm back. I spent some time at the grinder, and then I went over to a belt sander with a zirconium oxide belt, which polishes and cuts steel very, very well. So we've got this radius around, and now if the owner of this tool is going to make some beads, this tool is going to roll very nicely on the tool rest. Also, when doing planing cuts, not having a square corner, it's not going to dig in and grab. So we're pretty well there. I'm going to do a little sanding on it in a couple minutes here to finish this off. But we basically finished the 4 basic tools for spindle work. What we now need to do is to go ahead and start talking about the bowl turning tools. So next lesson is going to be bowl gouge part 1, because there's internal cuts done a certain way. There's external cuts done a different way. So we're going to deal with part 1 of the bowl gouge in the next lesson. See you soon.